we have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
This week on Multipolarity, it's a double header of audio essays. One from Andrew Collingwood on the Atlanticists and Autonomists taking their battle for supremacy into the new EU administration. And another from Philip Pilkington, setting out how a new kind of Trussification may be coming for the states within the European Central Bank. Is Le Pen mightier than La Banque? It's Premium Week, so if you're not already a subscriber, head over to Patreon, where for £5, euros or dollars a month, you can get all our previous premium content, as well as this week's ep. Cancel anytime.
So we've been discussing on the podcast quite a bit before about the potential of this Trussification of politics. We've discussed it mainly with respect to the United States. We've highlighted some news headlines that seem to suggest that the US may suddenly become vulnerable to a Truss-style crisis, which might hem in or discredit an incoming Trump presidency. I think we were engaged in realistic speculation at the time, but, you know, it was speculation. It was just kind of interesting that these headlines had bubbled up at a time when Biden is still president, and they were effectively saying that the United States was kind of broke. So, you know, I think it was reasonable speculation. But what's happened now in the past week or so has really torn the mask off in a way. So as listeners probably know, there's a French election coming up shortly. The reason it's been called is because the Emmanuel Macron's party, Renaissance, it's been renamed to, lost very heavily in the recent European elections, and they lost to Marine Le Pen's Rassemblement National. So Macron made what many think now is a very poor choice to call an election, but the election's been called. It's created complete panic in Parisian elite circles. We've again covered this on the show. But what's happening now is very interesting because we're getting Liz Truss talk all over again. We're being told that the French economy is broke, effectively. We're getting headlines like, why France's far right is spooking markets. Macron's finance minister, Le Maire, I think his name is, said that France, quote, could experience the same dire consequences to follow the spending plan presented 2 years ago by then UK Prime Minister Liz Truss, which resulted in her almost immediate downfall. I kind of imagine him saying that latter part with some excitement. This is nominally targeted at the fact that Rassemblement National's program is very spending heavy. They're kind of a left-right sort of thing where they spend big on social programs and then they're very stern on crime and immigration and so on. But it's hard not to see something else going on here, especially given the fact that the French markets reacted effectively. The credit default swaps blew out, big prediction of a higher rate of default and so on. The ECB said basically we're sitting on our hands for this. So it is kind of looking like the Truss thing has moved to Europe. Now, the interesting thing about the Truss thing moving to Europe is that Europe is much better set up for the Truss thing. And the reason for that is because countries that are in the euro don't have independent central banks. If you're France or you're Germany or you're Italy, you don't issue your own currency. The central bank issues the currency, that's the ECB. And that also means that if the central bank wants to intervene to stabilize the debt market, it's doing it from the ECB. The ECB has to make that decision. Technocrats within the ECB have to make that decision. And the rules are sufficiently unclear that they can basically make that decision arbitrarily. That's different from, for example, in the UK or the US, where the central bank, we'll go into this more in a moment what it means, but the central bank is nominally in control, and it's within the country, it's within the remit of the country. So in theory, maybe not in practice, but in theory, if a central bank decides not to stabilize debt markets, the government could fire the board of the central bank and get in a new board, in theory. Now, that may not be possible in practice. So the ECB is very well set up to do the trust thing. And arguably it's done something like it before. If it does so, the consequences for Europe itself and for the structure of the EU and the Eurozone and everything is just really up in the air at that point. But I guess where we'd start with this is just to realize that.
What should we realise? How will Christine Lagarde cook the Rassemblement National goose? How dangerous is it when monetary wonks start to tug at the jesses of real political power? All these answers are on the other side of the velvet rope. And they could be yours for £5, euros or dollars a month. Patreon.com/multipolarity. And now, on with the show.
Starting to become politicized, and once stuff starts to become politicized, it starts to get very unpredictable. You don't know what happens next.